Hey guys, so I am back. Thanks for joining me, and I just want to extend my sincere gratitude to those who have reached out to me, who have sent text messages, emails, Facebook messages, sent me DMs on Instagram. I just want to say thank you for your support, and I appreciate all of the kind feedback. You can always text me or email me at letstalk@hopeandher.com. You know, feel free to share your story. I got a lot of people to just talk about their stories while I am on my journey of, just talking about my story. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your story with me. So let's get started. I wanted to give you part 2 of the child abuse awareness series. And because it's Child Abuse Awareness Month, I just wanted to share my story with you. So now we're on part 2 of that. And so the second video is going to be about the effects of my child abuse. A lot of kids or adults who've experienced any type of abuse have seen different effects. Some may make it through without any effects, and some may go through a lifelong journey of dealing with the consequences of that abuse. And unfortunately, or fortunately, maybe, I don't know, depending on how you want to look at it, I'm one of those who have experienced a lot of reaction to the abuse that I endured as a child throughout my adult years up until today. So I'm going to explain to you a couple of things that I've experienced and some things that you may want to look out for other children or yourself. You may want to do some reflection and just kind of see, well, was that something that I could relate to? So let's get started. So the first thing that I experienced as a child was PTSD. PTSD is basically, as the National Institute of Mental Health puts it, so basically everybody reacts to fear or danger or trauma differently, right? So your body reacts in what they call a fight or flight response. That is normal. And what's not normal is that after some time, naturally you begin to readjust and you go back to your baseline, your body's baseline natural just phase, I guess. I don't know. However, for those who suffer from PTSD, they're always in a fight or flight stage. They're always hypersensitive to trauma or danger, even when there is no perceived trauma or danger around. And that was me as a child. I suffered from PTSD. And it's not something that I knew growing up. It was something that now that I know what it's called today, that's something that I look back over my life and I realize, yes, that is a form of PTSD. Now, I learned that I had PTSD around 2000, between the years of 2010 and 2012. Because at that point I was going through a relationship and it was not a good relationship, and it led me to go to see a therapist. And my boyfriend at the time had me feeling like that I was completely insane for the things that I was thinking. However, so I went to a therapist because I needed to know I was not crazy. And I wasn't crazy in thinking the things that I was thinking during that relationship. However, the therapist did reveal to me other issues that I had going on in my life and revealed to me that PTSD was one of them. But he also revealed to me that I was not insane for thinking some of the things that I may have thought. throughout that tumultuous relationship. That would be a video on its own at another time. So let's get back to my PTSD. So I explained to you what PTSD is. It's a flight or fight response. And for those with PTSD, they're always in this kind of hypervigilant state, even there when there's no threat around. That was me as a child. Now, that came out in a lot of different ways. For one, my body reacted in a way that I couldn't control. Like, I would get shakes. My body would just shake, and I couldn't stop it. And so I didn't know what it was, and I just dealt with it. And occasionally, even to today, when I'm doing something that may be a little stressful, my body may do a jerk like that, and then I just move along with it. I don't know if it's something that my body is naturally just adjusted to, but when I was younger, my body would just constantly shake. And mainly my body would go through those changes at night. So, and because that's when a lot of the abuse happened, was at night. So basically I wouldn't know if there would be a situation that would happen or not. So if I were to wake up out of my sleep, I would literally, my body would just shake like this. It would just shake. It would just shake until I fell back asleep. And now it's just something that it doesn't happen anymore. But when I'm around and I'm doing something, or if I'm overwhelmed with a lot of different tasks at once, if you're sitting across from me, or if you're sitting with me, if you see me, my body just may just do a flinch, and then I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And I think that's something that's just I've become accustomed to, or I've adjusted to over the years. But back when I was a child, it happened a lot, and I literally my body would shake and I couldn't control it. Uncontrollably, my body would shake until I would fall back asleep. And of course, another thing I experienced as a child as a form of PTSD is that obviously I couldn't sleep. So if I were to fall asleep and something was to wake me in the middle of the night, because I've had those tremors, I couldn't sleep. So I would literally just be up throughout the night because of the tremors, or just because of the fear that I was expecting something to happen. So I was always anticipating something happening, and therefore I could not sleep. Another thing that was a result of my abuse is, this may sound a little gross, but bedwetting. Now, I experienced bedwetting a little bit longer than what's normal. Now, the sleepfoundation.org says that bedwetting is perfectly normal up until the age of 7. But I experienced bedwetting long after 7. I don't know how old I was when it stopped, but I was probably young teenage, maybe. I don't know. I can't say. Because once again, if you look at my first video, I don't really remember what happens through my life by ages. It's just events, and so I don't remember when it stopped. I just know that it stopped. So I would say maybe like early tween, 12, 13, I don't know. I'm just throwing a number out there, but I experienced bedwetting for an extended period of time, and the National Institute of Mental Health, which I'll put links in the description box so that you can learn more about the signs and symptoms of PTSD, as well as, abnormal childhood development. The National Institute of Mental Health states that, there are things you can do to combat bedwetting. And as a child, I went through it all. I did the bladder training, where I wasn't allowed to drink anything after a certain period of time, or I wasn't allowed to drink anything after a certain time of day, and I would be woken up in the middle of the night to go use the bathroom, things like that. I also used these training alarms, which was very interesting. So basically you go to the doctor and they give you these like little course the medication. I don't think I got to the point to where my mom put me on medication or my mom took me to the doctor to have me put on medication. I can't remember, but I do know that the training alarms, the bladder training, the waking me up in the middle of the night, the underwear, I tried it all. It did not work. Like I said, I don't know how long I was bedwetting was an issue for me. I do know, however, that I got very clever when it came to wetting the bed. Sorry, I know this is kind of crazy, but I was old enough to know that if I ever wet the bed, I would wake up in the middle of the night, take off my pajamas, put them in the washing machine, take the sheets out of my bed, put them in the washing machine, and I would literally stay up in the middle of the night washing and drying and put them back on my bed before anybody knew. Or sometimes I would even do things like put towels on my bed to soak it up. That way my mom couldn't tell, because she would check in the morning to kind of rub the bed to see if I wet the bed. Or yeah, so I got kind of clever. So obviously I was old enough to know that it was an issue, and it was very embarrassing. And part of the reason why bedwetting was an issue for me was because, like I said, a lot of the trauma and a lot of the abuse was at night. So I would not want to leave my bed to use the bathroom if I had to. And so I would literally at night hold it to where I was literally paralyzed. I felt paralyzed by either fear or because I didn't want to leave my bed, because if nothing was happening, that meant I was safe for me. So I didn't want to interrupt or create a situation to where me leaving my bed, going to the bathroom, caused an issue or caused a situation. So I would literally just hold it until the morning. And I did it so much to where even when there was no longer an issue, I still suffered from the problem, because I trained my body to not go to the bathroom. So bedwetting is an issue, and it's definitely something that if you see a child who is beyond 7 years old suffering from, it could be a little bit more than just immaturity or they're unable to control their bladder. It could be something a little bit deeper. So another thing that I was affected with was unattached coping or detached coping style from my family, because like I said in my first video, the abuse started from a family member. I didn't tell anybody. I never expected it to get out, but my mom found my diary, and I had written in my diary what had happened by what family member. My mom took that information to my grandma, and my grandma was the one who kind of handled it within the family. Now at that point, there was a separation, and then the separation didn't last long, but there was a separation. And also some family members had very negative things to say about me, even though I was a young child. And of course it was along the lines of, well, she shouldn't be doing this, or she shouldn't be wearing this. But I was like 8 years old. I don't know what I could have done to make it not happen, but of course some of the family members placed the blame on me. And that caused a separation or division within the family for a short amount of time. I don't remember how long, because I was pretty young. But eventually, the family just started to act as if nothing happened. And so once everyone became back together, I would separate myself from family when we were in family gatherings, because I didn't want to be included, I wanted to exclude myself from the person who caused the abuse. So yeah, I secluded myself. I was very detached from family members. I don't have much of a relationship with extended family members, and that's just because I couldn't have a relationship with extended family members without being honest or being open about what happened, even though the adults knew and they all acted as if nothing happened. So I just decided to separate myself and just kind of keep to myself. And it was easy for me because as a child growing up, I was literally the only child within my age range. You know, I had older cousins. They were, you know, maybe 10 years older than me. And I had younger cousins who were like 10 years younger than me. So I was probably the only child in my family who was within my age range. So it was very easy for me to seclude myself because the older kids didn't want to, you know, they had other older kids to play with. The younger kids had other younger kids to play with. So it was easy for me because I just didn't really have anybody I was age-wise very close with. So it wasn't that different. But that changed when I got a little bit older. But that's a different video. So, of course, so I was very detached from family, and not just my extended family, but my family within my home. So my mom, and today we still struggle with our relationship, but it's, and that started when like maybe middle school, early high school maybe, where I became more detached from my mom, and that's because, like I said, after the family member, it was a boyfriend of my mom's, and so I felt as though my mom continued to choose her boyfriend over me, and therefore I couldn't trust her judgment and her ability to protect me. And so I decided to continuously drift away from her. Even though I would tell her certain things, nothing happened, nothing changed. So I shut down, and I just wasn't able to trust her with how I felt. I wasn't able to trust her to protect me, and so it came to the point to where I was very detached from my mom. And you can still say I am kind of still detached from her, but I acknowledge that today, and we try to work on it. But that's something that started way back when I was younger. That detachment, and I've also, you know, became very detached from friends, like I said in the first video. And it wasn't because of friends not being friendly, it was just that I couldn't relate to those kids my age. I just felt like I lived in this world alone, and so I couldn't go to school and just be a kid because I didn't feel like I was in the kid's headspace. So I was very afraid to I didn't think I was gonna get emotional. I was very afraid to open up to other kids or be very vulnerable. Basically, I just wasn't able to get that high school best friend, you know, the friend you've had for 10 years. I was never able to really commit myself to a really enduring friendship when I was young. I was very angry, and mainly I was angry in my close relationships. It wasn't so much of the relationships outside of my home, but I was angry with my mom for obvious reasons. And so because our relationship was so strained, it was very easy for me to just lash out when something was said, or me just not address certain things with her very appropriately. So I was very angry. But there were other things that created that atmosphere aside from the abuse. It was also There was verbal abuse. And, you know, as a child, if you lose the trust, you really can't regain that trust. So you're going to lash out and do things. So I was very angry, more within my family, not outside of my family. But I don't know, maybe, but I don't recall ever being angry or just overly angry with anyone. Another thing as a child, or not a child, but as a teenager, I needed to be in control of my surroundings. And so I became, and that kind of led over into the adult ages where I was very meticulous about how I wanted things. I couldn't control the abuse. So anything else that I could control, I wanted to control. I was very adamant and particular about my grades. Anything that I was doing, whether it was sports or extracurricular activities, I needed to be. So there are things that I quit, you know, um, in my teenage years that I wish I hadn't quit, but I didn't want to look as though I didn't have control over the things that were happening to me. So if it made me feel crazy, if it embarrassed me, if I just couldn't get it right off the bat, I quit it. I wouldn't do it. And I just move on. And there's things like photography and dance and cheerleading and soccer, and I did all types of things. You know, I was in the band. I played the saxophone. I was doing all types of things that I wish I had stuck with. Some of the things I stuck with longer than others, but I wish I had stuck with it because obviously it's a good thing to stick things through, but it was a creative outlet for me, and it potentially could have built relationships for me, but I just didn't want to do it because, you know, whether it was me not being good at it or me not looking like other kids, especially in dance, I didn't want to have that attention on me, so I just quit it. Another thing is somatic complaints. As a child, as far back as I can remember, I suffered from extreme migraines. When I tell you my migraines would take me out, and I would be like 10, 9, young, very young. And I just could not. My mom would take me to the doctor. The doctor would tell me things, oh, it's a sinus headache or things like that. And it was more than a sinus headache. It would literally consume me to where I couldn't function. And that lasted up until, you know, after I left my home and moved away, maybe a year into me being away from home, it kind of subsided. But, you know, the doctors just could not explain why I was getting the headaches that I was getting. And they would put me on medication, and medication wouldn't work. And so, you know, that all came from just the stress, just the trauma that I experienced as a child. I suffered from headaches for a very long time, starting at a very young age. And another thing that happened as a child is that the things that I saw or the things that I experienced as a child, I acted out those things with other kids. And I won't go into details, but I got in trouble a lot in school because I wanted to play house with the daddy and things like that, and did some things that was inappropriate. And it was because I would literally try to act out some things that I had seen, and I just didn't know that it wasn't right, I guess, because I would be shocked. And I was also very dramatic growing up. So I'd be like, what? Me? What? And I would get in trouble, you know? So, yeah, I acted out things I probably shouldn't have acted out as a child. But, you know, I didn't know. I didn't know. So that was some of the things that I experienced because of my abuse.